imagine that explosion wasn't even inside that LA Fitness, but the magnitude of it was so powerful that the racquetball courts we see at every gym had shattered from the inside. So that gives people an idea. So I want to take this question from Alexis Vivanco. Hello. How do you deal with the contrast stress? Hold on one second. Thank you. The stress of the coronavirus. Okay. So
go lay down.
Yeah, I mean, it's not related to directly what we're talking about, but it's actually very relevant right now. It's not an easy stress. You do your job. You want to make sure that you're educating the public, especially when you're dealing with stuff like food distribution sites and testing sites. That is just such valuable information for our area, Miami-Dade and Broward, for our people. You know, if you want to weigh the importance of being a journalist, there it is right there, making sure that you're educating and informing and making sure people understand the importance of testing and who should test and who should not test. So there's the stress of the importance of the things you're saying and talking about. And then there's the personal part. You know, I have a family. My mother's 73 years old. I have a 3-year-old who, if he wakes up from his nap, you may get a cameo of. But the stress is just something that comes with the job. You know, this for me is not my first, I guess you could say, crisis. I worked in New York for Hurricane Sandy. I'm also a Florida girl. I was young when Hurricane Andrew hit. And then one of my first years in news, I was covering the year that Hurricane Wilma, Katrina, and Rita came through. So I've also covered blizzards and snowstorms. So part of that kind of like, you know, it doesn't come right away. It's something that takes time. But when you understand your importance and your role, I think it makes it a little easier because you know you have a purpose. I'm sorry, baby, you just skipped over one here. Okay, hi, Andy. Do you get nervous when reporting a situation like that? Did I not look nervous? Because I was very nervous. Of course, I mean, I think that even the most professional journalists and reporters, you know, you're never in the same place twice. You're never talking about, you're usually not talking about the same story twice, unless it's the coronavirus, of course, or a hurricane, but you'll be in a different area, you'll have a different story. So there's always some nuance to it. There's always something new you're dealing with. So there is a level of nerves, but you channel that into good energy. I'm nervous because I want to make sure, like right now, I want to make sure that I'm speaking clearly. I want to make sure that you guys are understanding what I'm trying to say. I'm giving you the description of what we're seeing properly, so you understand. So yes, there's nerves. Channel them and use that for good. Use that to be a better writer. Use that to pick a better element. Ask a better question. Because at the end of the day, that's what speaks. Forget your nerves. Just do your job and do it well, and you'll have nothing to be nervous about. Okay, Patrick from Coyote Chronicle. Hi, at Four Corners Upper School. How do you stay professional when you have to interview people who have been through those experiences? Right, so a big part of what we do is dealing with people, and that is an excellent point. It's not, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure we don't skip any questions. Okay, perfect. So a good part, an important part of what we do is dealing with people, right? So I've dealt with the absolute worst, incomprehensible situations, and you have a job to get the story out, but you're also representing yourself, you're representing the station you work for. You don't want to come at somebody who maybe just lost a loved one as if you're just a journalist trying to get the story. You have to have compassion. That's a big part of what we do. Yes, it's important to not be biased and not have an opinion, but you're still a human being. The people you're interviewing are still human beings, and at the end of the day, you can't assume someone's at fault for something. Obviously, you know, if you're out there in a breaking news situation, that is very preliminary. You know, if we're talking about a crime, investigation is involved, eventually a court trial or something like that. So always keep in mind, be compassionate, never assume. Assuming is the worst thing you can do in this business because you just never know what plot twist, what thing may have happened that no one's talking about. So stick to the facts and always be compassionate. All right, at least that's what works for me. How do you exactly get that video from other people? Good question, Chris, and congratulations. And I saw that reel, you did a great job. Okay, so you just ask them. You know, at the end of the day, these days, people are very familiar. These people are so familiar with what we do. This is a video-driven world now. So they understand that in this case, let's just say, an explosion just happened. I want to know what just happened. I wasn't there, you were there. So, hey sir, are you okay? This is something that was not expected. Did you see anything? Did you see anyone film anything? Do you have any video that we can use to help explain to our viewers what happened here? Usually it's very fluid. I mean, sometimes you just need to communicate and understand the person you're speaking with. People get it. Okay, so if you're reporting on an event like natural disasters of the current pandemic and you have to give breaking news, how does it feel to adjust and adapt quickly? Well, whether it's the pandemic or whether it's a hurricane, adapting quickly is part of what we do. We have to make sure that the first thing is that the facts have to be, what you're reporting has to be accurate. So speed is important. Being able to write quickly is important. That's something you guys need to take away. Anytime you're dealing with breaking news and news in general, you're often working on very tight deadlines, very quick deadlines. Producers want to know right away the elements, especially coming from a breaking news perspective. When it comes from when it deals with the pandemic, your facts, your reporting has to be correct. It's critical that it's correct because we are getting a lot of flack these days about, there being facts being reported incorrectly, and people are really keeping a close eye on that. So it's important to be fast, but it's more important to be accurate, and always remember that. How do you stay professional during very stressful or a very emotional story? You know, if I sat here and I told you that I haven't, teared up when a mom has told me they just lost their child, I would be lying to you. But it's important to remember why you're there. You're there to tell that story, whether it's a warning to drivers to not leave their babies in the car, or if it's a warning about, there's always a purpose to why you're there, and that's what you have to remember. It is typical to feel an emotion and your purpose together, then you should be all right. All right, so Jordan Perez from CCNN Live. Hello, how you handle stress reporting on such an important and sensitive topic? Okay, same thing. Remember, you're there, you have a purpose. You want to tell the story, and especially if there's a message behind it that will reach a larger audience. Again, I'll go back to, I have unfortunately interviewed mothers who have lost their children one too many times. One in New York, when I worked in New York City. This was a special needs child who somehow escaped his school because someone left a door open, and she made a plea to the public to please try and help her find her son. Eventually, his body was found dead. But when you have a person, it was a one-on-one interview, you have to fight through that emotion. You can feel it, but recognize it and keep going, because you're only human, but at the end of the day, you have a job. I'm sorry, give me 1 second.
No, déjame aquí, no me saques. Tengo la mano aquí.
Okay. I still have videos to show guys, so I'm gonna answer Peachy Megan's last question, and then I'm gonna show you, because I want to actually show you a package. That was a VOSTOT. I want to show you a package from the Super Bowl, which was a lot of fun, and I think you guys will see the fun, but also the news element of it as well. Thank you. All right, so Megan, last question for now. I'm with Four Corners Upper School. Hello. When dealing with situations like explosions, how do you communicate with authorities and stay safe? So that's something we're learning also in this pandemic, and safety is always important. I can tell you that no news station will want more than for you to not get hurt for a variety of reasons. So first of all, you always have to make sure you're safe. That street I was standing on, to show that image behind me of the window that had shattered on that LA Fitness, that roadway was closed. Had that roadway not been closed and there was cars coming through, I would not be there. You also have to use your best judgment. For the pandemic, there's different threats happening now for reporters, and it has to be recognized. Protests going on. The protests going on around the country, we haven't seen too much down here, but this is, for me, a reason why you always, as reporters, have to be very aware. You have to keep up with the news of what's going on, in the news, around you, in your area, around the country, because you never know what can happen. So your own knowledge will help you. Obviously, you've got to use common sense. You're not going to be in the middle of the street with cars coming through. Nothing is more important than your safety. Also, I use my mask, my hand sanitizer, the gloves, but here's another one. Big thing to think about, situational awareness. I was across from the Hard Rock Stadium testing site the other morning, and a man who wanted to get tested, which if you want to get tested, it may be because you have symptoms, parks where we were, me and my photographer, and we were far away across the street from the testing site, and he wanted to ask us questions about how to get to the line or whatever, and this is 5 o'clock in the morning, not expecting anyone to come up to us. We're kind of in a designated area, and it's moments like that where someone gets out of their car and just walks up towards you, that the unexpected. So never, always be on your toes. Never let your guard down at any scene, at any time. Anything can happen. At the end of the day, you're in public, and that's a reality of the job. All right, so I want to show you, this is some Super Bowl coverage. I thought this would be fun to watch real quick. This is the type of story, and the reason why I want to show you, first, it's a package. Second, because they said, we just want you outside of Hard Rock Stadium for the Super Bowl. We don't have very specific assignment. They wanted me to watch out for parking and fans and stuff like that. But sometimes you don't get so much direction because at the end of the day you don't know what's going on. So you have to get creative. So here we go. Callers then brought his limo to this lot and paid $700. Oh, sorry. Let me start it over. Exhilaration, not just for the game, but after finally finding parking, it wasn't being Here we go.
Now NBC6 Arlene Bornstein. She's got how some people are actually making out some big cash here from the fans. Arlene.
Okay, yes they are. Big bucks through parking like here at this lot that is right in front of the stadium, but also ticket sales. I spoke to a Chiefs fan from Boca who got 4 tickets for his son's 18th birthday just yesterday. He paid $38,000, then brought his limo to this lot and paid $700 to park it here. Exhilaration, not just for the game, but after finally finding parking. It wasn't so easy with spots at the Hard Rock Stadium sold out before the big game. There was the old-fashioned strategy.
We got the parking going on, discounted $25.
And the higher-priced technique.
The prices is $250.
Valet company Premier Parking putting about a $250 price tag for standard vehicles, $700 for limos, and $800 for buses or RVs. But the green light to tailgate here for some fans, priceless, because pre-gaming at Super Bowl 54 is banned as part of a security plan. Clearly not implemented here. We had a lot of fun hearing both Chiefs and 49ers fans prove to us who's the better team. Convince me why I should root for the 49ers tonight.
Oh my God, the 49ers is the best team in the NFL. They're just amazing. Have you seen their offense? Have you seen their defense? They're just going to Sam.
King of tailgating. There's barbecue everywhere. Everybody's having a good time in the parking lot, so.
You won me at King of Tailgating.
King of tailgating, that's right.
So I might just root for the Chiefs now.
You should root for the Chiefs, yeah.
Go Chiefs.
Go Chiefs.
I'll keep my team pick a secret. We're happy to have all fans down here in South Florida. For now, we're live in Miami Gardens. Arlene Bornstein, NBC6 News.
Okay. Speaking of Puerto Rico, the series of recent earthquakes that hit the island isn't just impacting people. More than 100 cats and dogs were surviving the devastation.
All right. So just a quick couple things before moving on from that, before I forget. You see, you work with what you have. You don't always know what you're going to have. You don't always have interviews set up ahead of time. You just work with what you have. And I feel like this was something that came out successfully. We had Chiefs fans, maybe other teams fans, and we had something that I didn't see much of on any other station, which was the tailgaters. Because remember, the Super Bowl, you could not tailgate as you normally do for Dolphins games at the Hard Rock Stadium, pre-pandemic. And so we found tailgaters who were willing to pay a lot of money to be at this lot. So we kind of crafted the story, you know, we were the lead at 6. So that was fun. All right, so, oh, by the way, that is a full-blown package. That is, you get more than one interview, you put it together, they should be about 1:30. I know you've learned this at school, but that is the difference between something short and trying to make something short and strong using, you know, that surveillance video, that cell phone video from the explosion, to this obviously a little lighthearted, but you get several interviews, you hit a couple different points, but narrow and focused. We hit different points, obviously, all having to do with the Super Bowl, the parking, the tailgating, and that extra fun stuff. All right, so Andre Worry. I'm Andre. Oh, okay, got it. Nice to see you. I'm Andrew. I was wondering, how do you do packages during the COVID? Like, how do you get B-roll in interviews? Okay, so that's a really good question. I stayed away from talking about that because I know that Alex de Armas did something on that. But for me, it's actually, you know, I can shoot my own packages, MMJ, but I can also, you obviously work with a photographer. So there have been days where I actually work on my own and I'm like, you know what, that's awesome because I really don't have to be in contact with anyone. So for those of you, you know, maybe shy from MMJing, it's really an important, you know, talent to have, you know, knowing all your crafts, knowing how to put something together on your own, even if it's just using a cell phone. So I did a story, a complete story using only video that people shot for me. And that was so that I don't physically have to go into any buildings. I try to not actually go into any building if I do any interviews. We have a social distancing microphone. It's like a boom mic almost. It's like 6 feet long. It gets a little heavy when I'm trying to hold it, but you know, I feel safe. But the other way is I've actually explained to people, to give you an example, we did a story on food distribution, and you know, you Skype with the CEO for Farm Share. Also, I talked to these caterers that catered for private schools, so obviously they're out of business because all the schools are closed. And the way I was able to get video of them making food, to have an element, I actually talked them through how to use your cell phone to get me the video I need. And so the conversation is like, hey, I need you to hold your phone horizontally, give me 10-second clips from different angles of your chef's cooking, of you on the computer, have someone shoot that. It's knowing what you're gonna need pretty much before you need it and asking people who don't know TV how to do it. But if you give them simple instructions, you'll get what you need, because I've done complete packages with videos that have been sent to me. I've had mayors do a quick video. I asked them one question. The one question I know I'm gonna need. Hey, do a video for me, answer this question, make sure it's well lit, send it to me, and I'll be able to include you in the story. And honestly, people appreciate that. People don't really want to be around other people right now. So that's the best way to do that. All right, so hi Gianmarco. I love CCNN, awesome. How are you able to keep quality news stories only being able to work at home? So I'm one of the ones who I don't only work at home, I'm out there on the field. And I think that, you know, you have to understand, sometimes we get too in our heads. Sometimes when we're, you know, everyone can do this, and it's easy to fall into this trap where we're so nervous about the audio and, oh, we're at a restaurant, is the audio too loud? And you know, there's a reason why we're in a restaurant, and there's a reason why the music is playing in a restaurant, because music plays in restaurants sometimes. You know, the ocean. Oh, you know, should we not have this in the background? Should we not have a bathing suit in the back? I mean, we're in the ocean, you know, we're at the beach. So I think people understand overall, my point is that there's a pandemic happening, and I would hope that there's an understanding that there's a limitation to what we all can do. And I think that even with limits, there's ways through your craft, through your writing and your storytelling, that if you know there's something that you're not showing, you can say why. or if there's something you're limiting, you can explain that in your piece. Not everything needs to be explained. Some things are people just get. So don't forget that although we want everything to be perfect, which I do, people understand. And there's some things that are implied, and not every single detail needs to be. There can be a limit to what you're doing as long as you craft it well. And if you feel the need to explain it, go ahead and explain it. Okay, hi Tommy. I have a question. So obviously we're in some trying times, but you've seen an increase of good community stories. Right. I think it's, personally, this is my personal opinion, I've never ran a TV station, I'm just a reporter, but I definitely think it's in the best interest of every news outlet to balance this pandemic and the type of stories coming out of it. I love doing good stories. One of my favorite stories was pets, an increase in pet adoptions, also pet fosters, because people have more time. They are able to have a pet, they're able to walk their pet. There's no constraint, oh, I have to go to work, I'm at home. So I definitely think that by by stations balancing that out, you can definitely allure an audience. If you have too much devastation and sadness and death and illness, I mean, people are, at the end of the day, people are going to turn that off because it's too much. But if you have a community organization who's contributing to farm share, if you have kids making masks, if you have kids saying thank you to healthcare workers and first responders. I know one of the most, I was #1 on Facebook. #1 on the Facebook leaderboard for all of South Florida, because this community decided to, on this Palm Sunday, greet a priest in a caravan, holding signs because they couldn't go to church. So they went to him. And I'm telling you, it was shared so many times. It's not just important to tell the bad. It's important to talk about the good also, because that is the reality. That is the reality of what's happening. People are doing good things to help other people at this trying time. All right, Adrian, wanted to ask, how do you keep the same quality of news through this time where we are asked to stay as distant as possible? Again, it goes back to, people know what's going on. You're not going to expect to see that, in fact, I think if people see you so close to someone else, that's going to be a turnoff. That's going to actually, signal a red flag, like, hey, why is this station allowing their reporters to be so close to other people? Why are these anchors so close to each other? I definitely think that it's not a lower quality thing. I think we're evolving with what's happening around us. And with any situation in news, that's what's expected. It's just that to evolve. So I think that it's one of those things, like I was trying to explain before, it's understood, the audience understands. Should you not take those social distancing measures, then it wouldn't look right, and it would be a negative thing, I think. Pandemic and not cause a panic. It's a really good point. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about this. Is the media hyping this up? Are we not hyping this up? And I often wonder, what would we be without the media? What would we be without these voices that tell us you're welcome? What would we be without these voices telling us what is happening in our world? You're allowed to have your own opinion and your own thoughts and do your own research. But I think at the end of the day, I mean, I can really only speak to WTDJ and our station. We are so careful. I mean, we are held by NBC corporate standards where we need 2 sources to report anything. So if we're reporting something, I can tell you at our station, it's not to cause panic, but it is to inform. And I think that, unfortunately, this situation is so unprecedented. Everyone uses that word. But, never before seen or experienced in modern times, in our lifetime, many of our lifetimes, that it's hard not to panic people, because it's just so different than anything we've ever experienced. So it is a fine line, and I think that injecting those feel-good community stories that are happening, I think that's a way to help balance that today. Okay, how do you share people's experiences as well as facts during these dark times and not spread? Okay, how to try to be positive about this? And I feel like I hope I just answered that question by answering the other question as well. Okay, do we have any other questions? Okay, Joseph, how do you keep composure with an interviewee's answer while they are going through an emotional and stressful situation? So that is a question that's been asked a number of times, and it's so interesting. I feel if you are a journalist, right, we have an interest in people. We have an interest in stories. So again, it goes back to being a human being, and I think that your own life experience, and connecting with a person, that's a big part of what we do every day. Again, it is not having your own opinion, it's not being biased, but being human and seeing a person suffer and telling that story, or seeing that person joyful, or seeing that person suffer in a hospital bed. I think because you have to connect in some way, that contributes to your storytelling, because you're speaking to an audience of people. You're speaking to people in, let's just say down here in South Florida, you're speaking to people in Broward and Dade and Keys, and if you don't have that human connection, if you're not affected in some way, it's almost like, why are you in journalism, in my opinion? I feel like we are the ones here to tell those stories, to give people a voice. All that said, you have to go back to your purpose is telling a story fairly, accurately, balanced, and so you always have to have that in the back of your head. You can't let the emotion stop you from asking the right questions, from making your deadline, from getting the elements you need, from getting the picture of that family member who passed away. You have to go in there knowing you have a job to do, 100%. But at some point, we're all part of this humanity. And the way you write has to reflect that, in my opinion. But again, not being biased, being factual, and getting the elements you need to present a fair, accurate, and balanced report. Just show, don't tell. Right, Son of God. Hi. So that is a very good point. Think about this. I mean, if you were watching the plantation explosion video that I showed earlier, and I think you were on to see that, I mean, would you have wanted just to look and not know what you were looking at, or where the person was, or what time of day, or what this means to this area? I don't know. Definitely yes. You show, but you describe what you're showing. Where are you? What would normally be happening at the time that this explosion happened? There was a place called Code Ninja, where kids were supposed to be at the time of the explosion, and they weren't there because it was around July 4th, and they just so happened to not be there. Isn't that information you want to know? I might not know that right when getting there, but I can tell you that is what I mean about the human condition. That is a fact that connects to people, and regardless of what age you are, if you can understand that where this explosion just blew out the windows of an LA Fitness and the racquetball court windows inside, and there was kids that were supposed to be right next door, that is part of the showing and the telling. You want to make sure that you're showing everything that people want to see and should know. But if there's a roadway closed, that speaks to people who might need to get through there. So definitely, I don't know if I agree with showing and not telling, but that's something to think about. How have your deadlines changed during this time of quarantine? How do you cope with the stricter ones? So deadlines are always important. A pandemic is not going to change our deadlines. We still have 4, 5, and 6 o'clock show and 11 o'clock p.m. show, and our morning shows, and our producers build those shows before we go on the air. In the morning's case, our producers come in at midnight, 1 in the morning, and they work really hard to put on a good show. So as reporters, we are like that tool to make sure, okay, we've talked about what elements, we talked about what story I'm going to do, and at 5:03, I'm gonna be live in front of that camera with my elements together. The producer's gonna have my script ahead of time, and it's really, you know, honestly something I've learned over the years is that it's your story is important, but you are a small part of a bigger thing. The show, the producers, there's so many people working behind the scenes. You know, you're just one part of a bigger puzzle. So again, pandemic, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, whatever it might be, hurricanes, listen, there's always obviously, if you are not safe, if you are in a place where debris is flying everywhere, water's coming in, you need to get to a safer place. The earlier you can let your producer know so she can move things, he or she can move things around, the better. But deadlines, you should always live and die by your deadlines if you can. Because again, it's about the bigger, it's about the team. All right. Oh, I'm sorry, babe. Sorry. Why is it so difficult? Wait, no. Okay, thank you. Okay, he's right. Okay, all right. Okay, COVID-19. Wow, that is such a good question. I've never covered a pandemic, and in covering the pandemic, I think it is important. I am constantly on my emails. I want to know everything that's going on. There's so much information, and even you as students, I'm sure you have realized the amount of information and how important the media has become at this time. So I have always been on top of different